In the last section, we threw in an action creator to delete an employee. The only thing we have to do with it is make sure that we call it with the ID of the employee that we want to delete. We reach out to our Firebase data store, grab the very particular employee out of all of our JSON data, and remove it. And then after that, over to the employee list. The last thing we have to do is hook this action creator up to our employee edit component. So back inside of employee edit, I will first scroll all the way to the top, find my import statement for my action creators, and I will import employee delete. Then I need to make sure that I bind this action creator to the component itself. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. Here's my connect statement. I will add in employee delete as an action creator to be bound to the component. So now the very last thing we have to do, very last thing, whenever a user on the confirm message or on the confirm component, whenever they press that yes button, whenever they say yes, I want to delete this user, that is going to call our onAccept callback. So inside of onAccept, we need to make sure that we call the employee delete action creator. So I'm going to scroll up to onAccept. We will call this .props.employee delete. And remember, we have to call this thing with the ID of the employee that we want to delete. So to get access to that ID, we will look at the employee object on this component's props. So we'll say UID is coming from this .props.employee. Now we can pass this UID into employee delete, and that should be about it. Do make sure that you pass this in as an object. So I should have, curly braces UID, and make sure that over in our action creator as well, our on delete action creator receives that as an object UID. All right, I think we're all ready for some testing in here. Now I took the liberty of adding another employee that we could just test around with as well. And that's John. So we just hired John, but John is not going to be working here for very long. Here's John. I'm going to fire John. And ta-da! We're left with just Jane. Perfect. So I want to also test really quickly dismissing the modal as well. So I'm going to open Jane back up. I'm going to fire the employee, but this time I'm going to say, nope, Jane can stick around. And ta-da, the modal just goes back down to the bottom with a nice little animation as well. So that's pretty much it. That's our whole application. We've covered every type of resource, or every type of operation we could take on this employee resource. So we can create them, edit them, delete them, and of course, just read them as well. So just show them up on the screen. I think the most interesting part of this application was, without a doubt, making that decision about how to split out the employee form between employee create and employee edit. So I want to reiterate there that we decided to rip out just the input, or the fields themselves, so that we could show it in both the create and edit version of that form. I think this was ultimately a very good decision, because if we ever come back with more custom behavior for either the create or the edit side of this equation, we can keep on adding in more and more implementation without really having to worry about disrupting anything that's going on with the create form or the edit form, or whichever one we're not working on. The one thing I will say is that this all makes this assumption that the employee form, or I should say the fields that we're showing on here, are never going to change. So there definitely could be a situation in which we say, well, whenever I create an employee, their name is never really going to change. So I should never let a user change the name of an employee. That would definitely be a use case for splitting off two separate versions of the employee form, or just pulling all those fields into each of the edit and create components. So only when the fields start to change would I start to really, worry about not being able to make reuse of this employee form component. Anyways, I thought that was a really interesting part of this application, and I hope you've enjoyed putting this app together.